For the record, my name is Brian Worrell, City Council for District 4, and the Chair of the Education Committee has designated me to begin this hearing. Today is August 26, 2025. The exact time is 4:14 p.m. This hearing is being recorded, is also being live streamed at boston.gov/city-council-tv and broadcast on Xfinity Channel 8, RCN Channel 82, and Fios Channel 964. Written comments may be sent to the committee email at ccc.education@boston.gov and will be made part of the record and available to all counselors. Public testimony will be taken at the beginning of this hearing. Individuals will be called on in the order in which they signed up and will have 2 minutes to testify. If you are interested in testifying in person, please add your name to the sign-up sheet near the entrance of the chamber, right over here to my left. And if you are looking to testify virtually, please email our central staff Megan at meagan.corugedo@boston.gov. Again, that's meagan.corugedo@boston.gov for the link, and your name will be added to the list. Today's hearing is for public testimony on docket number 1283. Order for a hearing to bring an historically black college or university satellite campus to Boston. This matter was sponsored by Councilors Brian Worrell and Council President Ruthie Louis Jen and referred to the committee on June 23, 2025. Today I'm joined by my council colleagues in order of arrival, Councilor Flynn. We also have received a letter of absence from Councilor Murphy. I'd like to now turn it over to Councilor Flynn for any opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your important work, Mr. Chair, on this issue. It's something I know it's always been very important to you, and I learned a lot about this subject from you. I do believe having a historic black college in Boston would be important, would be an important message for the entire nation. I also think there would be a lot of students that would love to stay here in Boston at a particular college, and students from across the country as well that would be, in my opinion, welcomed into Boston. But I'm here to listen, I'm here to learn, I'm here to support the proposal to have a historic black college in the city of Boston. I think there's a need for it. And I'll do whatever I possibly can, Mr. Chair, to work with you and colleagues in government to support that idea. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Flynn. And I'll just provide brief opening remarks. When we introduced this hearing order, the response was overwhelming in the best way. People from Boston and across the country reached out with excitement and a deep sense of belonging, and we haven't even broken ground yet. This idea isn't new. Boston has played a role in black education and excellence. We were home to the A.B.O. Smith School, the first public school for black children in the country. But fast forward to today, and we're at critical crossroads. Our black students are graduating at lower rates, underperforming on standardized tests, and now Boston exam school admission just dropped from 22% to 15%. These trend lines represent our kids facing barriers to long-term success. At the same time, our city continues to face serious representation gaps in the very field that drives Boston's economy: tech, healthcare, education, engineering, and public service. These industries determine who's building and designing our homes, who's teaching our children, who's providing medical care to our families, and who's shaping public policy. And in every one of these sectors, we see underrepresentation at every level, from internship slots to corner offices. And these gaps begin in our classrooms. That's what we need to change, and that's what an HBCU presence in Boston can help us address. HBCUs may represent just 3% of colleges, but they produce 40% of black engineers, 50% of black doctors and lawyers, 70% of black dentists. That's not just impressive, that's a direct response to the challenges we're facing right now in Boston. We give credit where it's due. Institutions like RCC, UMass Boston, Bunker Hill, Urban College, and Benjamin Franklin Institute are doing vital works as minority-serving institutions and predominantly black institutions. PBIs, predominantly black institutions, reflect who they serve today. HBCUs are rooted in historic missions to serve black students. This is not about choosing one over the other. It's about building a cradle-to-career ecosystem that empowers students at every stage. Some people ask, how can we talk about an HBCU when our students are struggling? But I argue, we need this precisely because our students are struggling. This might only be one tool, but we should be using every resource at our disposal to bring new partnerships, new mentors, and a new sense of urgency around outcomes. According to the Massachusetts Taxpayer Foundation, if Black and Latino students in Massachusetts graduated at the same rate as their white peers, the Commonwealth can gain $20 billion in increased tax revenue and reduce public assistance costs over the next decade. And if we close the broader racial disparities in education, housing, income, and wealth, we can grow the state's economy by $25 billion in just 5 years. That's not just a return on investment, it's a transformation of what's possible for our state and our city. Boston can lead the nation in closing racial disparities through targeted investments in people. When we invest in systems that empower rather than just assist, we address root causes, not just symptoms. And HBCU presence is one of those systems that can be powerful, that can be a powerful driver of educational excellence and career opportunity. And we can't talk about building a stronger future without addressing the reality of what's happening right now. In 2023, the U.S. Supreme Court struck down race-conscious admissions policies in higher education, a decision that has already had devastating ripple effects across our region. Since that ruling, we've seen black student enrollment drop sharply at Boston leading universities. Boston University from 9% to just 3%, Northeastern from nearly 8% to 5%, Harvard from 18% to 14%, and MIT from 15% to just 5%. These numbers represent young people losing pathways to higher learning, and they show how quickly progress can unravel where we're not intentional. Boston is known as the Mecca of education and innovation, but if we're serious about living up to that name, then we need to make space for institutions that reflect the full brilliance and diversity of our students, starting with the presence from one of the most powerful educational traditions in this country, a HBCU tradition. That's why today's public testimony matters, because this future has to be shaped with community, not just for community. Let's build something lasting, and let's work together. I want to recognize that Council President Louis Jen has also joined us, the co-sponsor on this hearing order. Council President Louis Jen, would you like any opening remarks?
Thank you so much, Councilor Rao, for holding this hearing. I think we are in a special week here in the city of Boston where we are hosting our HBCU Classic. And there's a lot of work that we still have to do, as was listed by the chair, in ensuring educational equity and access for our black students. And we know that the history of HBCUs and how they started really creating an opportunity for African Americans here in the country to pursue their education when excluded from other institutions. And so I think it's worthy of a conversation. I think we need to make sure that we're also, there we have minority serving institutions like, like Roxbury Community College and other schools that are doing the work of serving a lot of our underserved communities, and so making sure that we're supporting that. I always like to say, I did go to Harvard. I like to say that I attended the Howard of the North, and so I know, and I lived in D.C. and spent a lot of time on Howard University's campus, and the work, the research that a school like Howard, like Morehouse, like CAU, like Wilberforce, like so many of our HBCUs do is critically important, and thinking about how we can bring that and think about how we bring that or partner to do more of that work here in the city of Boston, I think is really important. So I'm here to listen and really thank everyone for coming out today to this conversation.
Thank you, Council President. We will now start with in-person testimony and then transition to online. Again, if you're looking to testify in person, the sign-up sheet is right over there to the left. We will start with Curtis Rollins, and then Edwin, and then Russell. someone assist him?
Good afternoon, council and attendees. My name is Curtis Rawlins. I come here as a alumni of Texas Southern University in Houston, Texas, as well as a, not a resident, but a hometown Bostonian. Grew up in the neighborhood of Dorchester. HBCUs are, to me, something that is very foundational as a Black American. I was able to get further my education by attending Texas Southern University after I graduated high school in Boston. And understandably, attending an HBCU is more than just the academics, it's cultural. Culturally different than in Boston, and even HBCUs are cultural in their respective cities and regions, as I was able to visit other campuses in the South during my undergraduate experience. I'm not sure, or I believe that it is impossible to mimic that in Boston. And I understand with trying to attract a higher education institution to come to Boston, such as any one of the number of historically Black colleges and universities, because they're worthy of it. But you cannot just take it for its academic purposes, even though its academic purposes are gold standard. It's still that cultural aspect that would be difficult to transfer. If there is a way of bringing both, I would highly be willing to assist in the voyage of doing so. But right now, as a HBCU alumni, I am very skeptical that the experience would be the same. And I don't want it to be just a thing to residents of Boston that they could choose from, but to understand that there is a cultural experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Edwin Sumter, and then Russell Glover, and then followed by Ayanna Warfield.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Edwin Sumter. A little backstory, I'm 65 years old. I've lived every day of my life in Boston, Massachusetts, except for the 2 years I attended Johnson C. Smith University in Charlotte, North Carolina, who ironically are playing up here in Boston this weekend. Go Golden Bulls, let's beat Morehouse. Those 2 years I spent in Charlotte, North Carolina at Johnson C. Smith University, as you can imagine, was like day and night. It's my first plane ride, first time going down south after spending all my life in Boston. I knew there would be a culture shock, but I had no idea how those 2 years would really shape me as an individual, as an African American, and instill a pride in me, and show me a side of African American life that I only read about and saw occasionally on TV. I'm here to put my support around this idea, and I have to be perfectly honest. I can't believe that in all the years I've lived in Boston, and the idea of a historically Black college or satellite in Boston never even dawned on me. It just seemed foreign. But the rich history we do have in this city around the African American experience and education, the needs that I do feel we do have, especially in my neighborhoods where I've grown up, in terms of impacting our young folks, it makes more and more sense. I'm also a former co-director of the Boston People's Reparations Commission, so I'm very tuned in, if you will, to the needs and some of the history of how we got where we are in my beloved community. And I'm not suggesting that the building or creation of a historically black college or satellite here in Boston be part of the reparations plan, if you will, or support. But at the same time, I do see it as a way to a means to improving and in some way repairing some of the things that have happened in the city in the past. Right down to desegregation, we couldn't live where we wanted, the imbalance in the schools, but also making possible a new choice for where the further education after high school, and doing it with what culture a historically black college or university brings. And you get to do it right here in Boston. You don't have to get on a plane and travel 1,000 miles to go to school and get that experience. And I think that would be invaluable to our young folks. So I'm here just to support it. I'm very pleased that you've brought this to the table. As I mentioned, I never even dawned on me, and I think this is where city government really works, by throwing things out and seeing what kind of response you gauge. And I hope I'm around long enough to see something like this happen, whether it's something built from the ground up or we establish a satellite from an existing school. I think it's a very exciting prospect, and I'd like to throw my support behind it and be available as much as I can about what it's like to go to one of those schools now, or what it was 40 years ago. But again, it may have been 40 years ago, but it lingers and it stays with me. And I couldn't do anything but smile when I thought it through and thought, wow, that would be a great addition to a city that has so many resources, is rich in so many ways. And I only see how a school like this, with the culture it brings, could only enhance the young people in the city. So thank you all, everybody, and let's go Golden Bulls this weekend.
Thank you. Russell Glover, followed by Ayanna Warfield.
Yes, hi there. Russell Glover, lifelong Bostonian, went through the schooling system in the high schools and the college. Nice meeting you again. Flynn, I've had breakfast with you at Mel King's house. But having to state that I've gone through the busing and the historical issues that Boston continues to persist is the racism. So when you compare a soil that is unaccepting to the roots of a HBCU college that's not, that's arid and dry, how are you going to be able to place that in the city of Boston with the progress that needs to be done? The schools that my kids went to in the Boston public school system, I see a gap where it would not be able to reach to with the statistics that was stated, 15% is a gap there. How are we going to benefit from this HBCU coming to Boston? Is it going to be for outsiders? Because how is that going to serve our purpose? And with the advent of the reductions in civil rights and so forth, with it already being an issue, this is going backwards. I had brought my kids into from the Boston Public Schools to the Metco School and met racism out there, and then brought them back into the Boston Public School system. Me being a single parent of 3 kids, a veteran, and I took them into trying to make a business at the Roxbury Innovation Center, the Cambridge Innovation Center, and I have a patent that I'm designing and patenting. And when I brought it there, we ran into racism even there, trying to educate them, getting into engineering and stuff like that. And myself, we ran into discrimination, retaliation, defamation. I filed a lawsuit at Superior Court. It's been going on for a few years, and it's just structural racism that's prevented us from taking advantage of the educational school system, the programs that's supposed to be helping us. So how is bringing something else in here when we're already struggling to utilize what we already have here? So therefore, that has to be dealt with. The soil has to be maintained enough for anyone to come in here and try to benefit from that type of schooling system where already the busing school system still is in effect to this day, where it drained the majority of the white students out of the system. So now being a majority minority, it's not getting the assistance from Harvard or Northeastern or any of these other medical schools or anything like that, that this school should not be like that. So that needs to be addressed, as there's a lot of other things that need to be addressed prior to bringing in this HBCU, and it's not going to be able to connect. That's what I see.
Thank you. Ayanna Warfield.
How y'all doing today?
Good.
That's good. Give me 1 sec. I'm trying to make sure I keep track of all of this. So my name is Ayanna Warfield. I am a family member. I am a fifth-generation Black Boston native, an artist, activist, and poet. People say I have a gift of making things sound good, so I hope you'll hear this today and trust the people who have been called invisible. My vision is based off of a personal understanding that, I'm not going to go into all of that because it's over-explanation. I believe an HBCU would be a valuable addition to our city, but specifically if it's focused on the education and evolution of our youth, with the forefront focus being on the improperly named children of YNs, who I'm renaming as Young Naturals. I propose building a part of the HBCU to be a focused school on expressive art and healing sciences within the university. This school could train expressive art therapists, inspire a vibrant Afrofuturistic art culture, and give our next generation a foundation of healthy coping mechanisms. Ideally, it would also produce more Black psychologists, psychiatrists, neurologists, and botanists who are from our community, born and raised in the struggles that need healing for our people to be free mentally and physically. This comes from my family has been a part of the Black community since the early 20th century. We have a legacy of artists, educators, activists, and police officers beginning in the 1920s and still creating and serving in Boston today, including myself. I share this not as a boast, but to demonstrate that while I may not have the collegiate credentials and some of these young people not have the collegiate credentials, we hold the knowledge based on unconditional love and a core value of staying, educating, fighting for, and serving the Black community of Boston as a form of liberation. I believe the young people who are labeled YNs are not reckless, but the children are powerful beyond measure. As I understand them, and correct me if I'm wrong, HBCUs teach us how to connect with our Blackness while also mastering assimilation into the modern world. I ask that you take this vision that I'm suggesting and not make the focus goal on assimilation, but restoration and evolution of our young people. Ask that you give Young Naturals a chance at self-redemption and a place in academia within the myths that have to bury. I'm gonna stop reading this because it's a little bit too long. I'm gonna finish it here. The city has a whole bunch of young people that are acting out and moving about because they have been taught that there is nothing here for them. Assimilation has taught a whole bunch of Black people, a bunch of Black children around this country that there is no end goal for them, and that is a problem. The reason why there's acting out is because there's no goals that is set in focus of the young people who are struggling, but in the focus of the young people of the future. I'm suggesting not only that, but with the idea of 17 middle and high schools closing by 2030, I suggest that as far as connecting HBCUs to this community, in a perfect world, it sounds crazy, make this city focus around making those 17 middle and high schools expressive art and healing science high schools, where we teach all of our children coping mechanisms. We teach all of our children some ways of expression. We teach all of our children that they have access to being able to protect and serve our community with not only with policing, but with other ways. And in a perfect world, after we do all of this, we send all of our kids to this HBCU. I believe our kids deserve an education. I believe all of our kids deserve a degree, because this modern world has been based around that. And I believe if we make, as they do in Randolph and some of the vocational high schools out there, if we make the middle schools focused on teaching all of these electives and vocations as a foundation, so that the kids at least have a coping mechanism, and then go into a high school where the focus is these things, they have the ability to, in a perfect world, graduate with an associate's degree and help the world faster. This is only crazy if I'm the only one thinking it's possible. So I'm putting this out there into the document and putting that suggestion out there. The way of how, I have the idea, but I don't got enough time to tell you how. But yeah, I'm gonna stop there.
Thank you. We'll now transition to virtual. We have Brianna Codio, and I just want to acknowledge that Councilor Durkin has also joined us. And then after Brianna, we have Cheryl Wesley, and then Judith Baker.
Hi, how are you guys? Can you see and hear me?
Yes.
Amazing. I am Brianna Codio from Hampton, Massachusetts. I am a sophomore pre-law political science and criminology double major at Howard University. And I'm here in support as well as ambassador of docket number 1283. You probably couldn't tell by looking at me that I spent my summer working in the executive office of the Treasurer and Receiver General within the State House. You probably couldn't tell by looking at me that I worked for the first Black Democratic chairman of Arizona at the DNC. You probably couldn't tell by looking at me that I was president of my National Honor Society, Spanish Honor Society, and my student government while balancing a dozen clubs, and I was the only Black woman on these boards. You probably couldn't tell by looking at me that I am a child of immigrants. You probably couldn't tell by looking at me that I ensured my high school breakfast program provided my classmates enough food when home couldn't provide one. You probably couldn't tell by looking at me that I am a 4.0 student. You probably couldn't tell by looking at me that I was the only person in my graduating class to choose an HBCU. But what you can immediately tell, without a resume, without a transcript, without a story, is that I am a Black woman. And too often that fact alone is what people decide precede me. They tell me I don't deserve the life I live because of the color of my skin. I've watched my name morph from Brianna to the Black one, and if I was lucky, Black Brianna. I've been told that my ability to articulate myself sounds white, as if eloquence manifests itself in one color, as if an educated person of color mimics whiteness. My successes are treated like anomalies, but in HBCUs across the country, they are the norm. And that's why I'm here. Kendrick Lamar once said, "If I told you a flower bloomed in a dark room, would you trust it?" That question is at the heart of my journey. My roots are planted in a small town in Massachusetts, firm but tangled in soil heavy with expectation and doubt. I grew tired of the shocked faces when people realized I was making decisions that shaped their lives and being placed in positions where they would not fathom someone like me would be in. Like roots unseen, my work was overlooked until the results surfaced. My STEM carried the weight of disapproval. Like when college decisions came out, I was told I only got accepted into certain prestigious colleges and universities because of the color of my skin. A STEM that had to grow taller and stronger just to prove it could stand on its own. I grew tired of being cast as the one who will make it out, as if I alone carried the sunlight for everyone else. A flower cannot give life to a whole garden. Every seed deserves the chance to grow, to envision its own bloom. So can a Black child born in a world designed to doubt them ever truly be allowed to bloom? HBCUs answer that question with a resounding yes. HBCUs build bridges where society builds walls, connecting the diversity within minority communities together. They take in students of all backgrounds and cultures who have yet to make their legacy, kids who are heirs to political dynasties or beneficiaries of generational wealth, but young people who are dreamers. Dreamers who refuse to stop at a middle-class success, who dare reach beyond the stars. HBCUs shape leaders who transform every corner of society, from film, sports, medicine, law, politics, and education. They give us the tools not just to exist in predominantly white spaces, but to carry our full selves into them unapologetically. Because those spaces cannot teach us how to survive as Black people, only we can. So yeah, you probably couldn't tell by looking at me, the alumni, the faculty, or other students, that we were born from dark spaces, because HBCUs helped me see the light that has always shined from within. And all I ask now is that you trust me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brianna. Thank you for testifying. Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry I'm coming in late. Henry Santana, at-large city councilor and the chair on education. I just want to thank Councilor Orell for stepping in. Had some transportation issues getting here, and really appreciate you being able to get this important conversation started. So we're going to continue. I don't want to mess up the flow more than what I've done already. So we're going to continue with the virtual testifying. Next up, we have Cheryl Wesley. And we're going to take Judith Baker afterwards. So Cheryl Wesley, are you with us?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. Full disclaimer, today's my mother's birthday, so we're at a spa, but I stepped out because I do not want to miss this conversation. So thank you, Councilor Worrell's office, for inviting me to speak. I am Cheryl Wesley. I am a resident of New York City. I was born in New York. I still reside there. To take it back just a little bit for context, for high school, I went to a historically Black high school in Pine Forge, Pennsylvania. It's a boarding school, co-ed boarding school, all Black, Christian. It's called Pine Forge Academy. And then I graduated and attended Oakwood College, which is in Huntsville, Alabama, to Seventh-day Adventist school. And, you know, I grew up Seventh-day Adventist, and the gag is we grew up just knowing we were going to Oakwood. We didn't understand that it was a HBCU. So when I hear Oakwood under the category of HBCU, I still chuckle a bit. I transferred out of Oakwood and into Howard University. Shout out to my Bison sisters and brothers there, HU. I graduated from Howard in communications, a BA in communications, radio, TV, film, child education as a minor. Howard invited me to chair the event on Martha's Vineyard, Bison on the Vineyard. It's a Howard University Alumni Association's signature event. At the time, the president of the National Alumni Association, Chris Washington, invited me to chair that event on Martha's Vineyard, and I did that for 2 consecutive years. Falling in love with the island off the coast of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I started an HBCU week on Martha's Vineyard called Legacy Week on the Vineyard. So I now deem myself, and I started Legacy Week in 2016, and I first put foot on Martha's Vineyard 2012. So fast forward at this time, Legacy Week is thriving, and I love having access to Massachusetts. And also I received a citation from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, a good citation, contributing to the HBCU tourism of Martha's Vineyard. So I'm very appreciative and grateful for that. I love being in proximity of Boston. I will be there this week for the HBCU Classic and the Essence Festival engagements that they have. So I hope to see some of you in person there. We all know an HBCU didn't come out of Massachusetts or Boston, but having access to it, I always tell my nieces, if you can't have it yourself, have access to it. Having access to an HBCU, I think, would increase the value of what HBCUs were built on, why we were even given an HBCU, whether it was created by good white folk or African Americans or churches. whatever the case may be, they saw the value in that. Being the founder of Legacy Week, so many people tell me, oh, I wish I could have attended an HBCU, it's too late. And I joke with them saying, actually, you can apply to be a student for one full semester. That gives you right to be an alumni of an HBCU. And people are taking that to be a great idea, just to be associated with HBCUs. We put out fabulous success of doctors, educators, professors, professionals. I mean, brilliant, brilliant people, especially with limited resources that we may or may not have. Like the brother said in the beginning, there's nothing like being on the campus of an HBCU and that experience that you get. But having access to it within the city of Boston, I feel like it's going to be beneficial and needed. And I would also like to propose for HBCUs to be promoted more in the public schools. So many public school counselors, they don't even push their current students in high school toward an HBCU, but instead maybe a local community college or the universities that are in their proximity of that state. But I would like for Boston and Massachusetts to have more programs like the one in New York called HBCU Access, where they go into public schools and let students know that HBCUs are an option for you, no matter your economic background, your family background. UNCF is a great tool and resource to reach out to, and Thurgood Marshall College Fund as well, and many other scholarships. So it is possible. I don't know how this goes, but I yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Really appreciate your testimony. Next up, we have Judith Baker, and then we have Antonia Edwards, and then we'll go back to in-person testimony. Judith Baker, are you with us?
Hello. I'm trying to, oh yes, okay. So I'm not going to speak directly to creating an HBCU. I was a teacher for my whole career and sent lots and lots of Boston students to HBCUs where they had great experiences, and I think it's a wonderful thing. But a couple of things come to mind. One is that right now, HBCUs are going to be potentially under a terrible threat from the Trump administration because so much of their tuition comes from Pell Grants, and Pell Grants are being threatened entirely. And if they are, we're going to be in a fight, I think, to keep the Pell Grants because it will send many HBCUs into bankruptcy. So I think we have to be very clear. The threats to the actual existing HBCUs, as wonderful as they are, they don't have big bank accounts, and they rely mostly on tuition. So it's something we really need to think about. Another really huge thing is the attack on DEI and all kinds of black admission at universities like Harvard and BU and so on. I wanted you to know, I mean, I'm generally an advocate for vocational technical education, as some of you know, but I'm also a member of a Harvard alumni group that has been very interested for several years now in trying to create much stronger relationships between Harvard and other universities and the HBCUs, because as the Black and brown alumni or black and brown enrollees at these universities, enrollment has been cut, has been really seriously cut, and our students are having so much less access to those universities. Those universities, it seems to me, bear a responsibility and an interest in supporting the education of Black and brown students. So this group, I'm hoping, Councilor Worrell, your group, it would be really a huge contribution to begin to get involved, if you haven't already, you may have already, with the local Boston universities in how they are supporting HBCUs. That is, are they bringing HBCU students for graduate programs? Are they helping with money? Are they helping with fundraising? There's so many things that the local universities can do to support the existing HBCUs, and I think the fact that the HBCUs are really going to be threatened by the Trump administration in lots of ways is something that we have to be very serious about. To start another college in Boston, I'm not against it or for it. I haven't thought about it, and I'd certainly want to be involved. But I do also think that there are very, very wonderful results that could come from the kind of partnerships that my alumni group and others would like to see at Harvard and elsewhere. So I think that this discussion raises more than one venue for strongly increasing and supporting Black and brown enrollment in universities and in colleges. And I do offer what little bit of help, support, or whatever I could give to the working group. Thank you very much, Councilor Rowe, for doing this. And also thank you for your support for technical vocational education, which is another very strong route for Black and brown students, and one in which access has been denied for a long time, and something that we're working very hard on. As most of you know, technical vocational high schools provide direct high skills education, links to college education, links to very high paying jobs that traditionally in Boston, Black and brown students have not had access to, but that we're fighting very hard to give them access to. So I think that both the concept of college education and the concept of career education are all really the same thing, and it's a joint fight. But thank you very much for doing this.
Thank you, Judith. We have Antonia Edwards next, and then we'll go back to in-person testimony.
Hear me? Can you hear me?
We can hear you, yep.
Okay, so my name is Antonia Edwards. I am fourth generation removed from chattel slavery and resident of Boston. I want to say first thank you to the distinguished city council people for bringing this bill to fruition. I think it's extremely important. I'm coming from a historical context, so just bear with me. The American Freedmen Bureau of 1965 was created to create the HBCUs for American freedmen, and the American freedmen are the 4 million formerly emancipated persons and their descendants. And this was done during from slavery to Reconstruction. And the biggest pieces that I'm going to read off real quick, because I know we don't have a lot of time, but I want to make sure it's understood that there's a whole legacy and history behind HBCUs. The American Freedmen Bureau of 1865 established the Bureau of Freedmen, which is a landmark legislation that was created to assist the 4 million formerly emancipated slaves, American freedmen. The key components of the Bureau were to support schools to become the foundation of many historical Black colleges and university HBCUs, including Howard, Fisk University, and Hampton. These schools provided higher education opportunities for freedmen and their descendants who were denied access everywhere else. The American Freedmen Bureau of 1865 created many other institutions. So, for instance, 1865, Congress passed the Freedmen Bureau Act, establishing the aid. In 1867, Howard University was created. 1868, Hampton University was created. And then in 1868, also, the Freedmen Hospital in D.C. was created for the Black community and trained doctors and nurses. The Bureau then established support for only 40 hospitals in the South. What I want to go back to is like the summary of the significance of the American freedmen and also this HBCU. The Freedmen Bureau created 40 hospitals and 1,000 new schools that supported the education of 250,000 freedmen, which laid the foundation for HBCUs and professional school and still exists to this day. Many of these schools grew into HBCUs, which continue to serve the center of higher education, cultural pride, community advancement on the community. So we are so much in favor of the HBCUs. There's not one HBCU in New England. The closest is Howard in DC, and also Fisk, I do believe, in Pennsylvania. So this is something that's long time, should have happened a long time ago. And I think that in the current situation where we're trying to change the atmosphere for racism in Boston, this is something that we really need. We really don't have anything in Boston that reflects our heritage, our culture as being Black Americans, as being American freedmen. And I think that this is much needed. I want to just give a disclosure. I am with Solidarity Community Engagement Group. We advocate on behalf of American freedmen. My national organization is United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen. We highly advocate for American freedmen. We have 2 state bills, one for Office of Freedmen Affairs and one for also a commission. I currently sit on the City of Boston Preparation Task Force, and this is one of the recommendations that I was going to make. However, I can clearly see after speaking to Brian when he made me aware of this, we need to do something now. And so if this is something that I can sign on to help further educate for the historical part of it, because it can't happen without the history, without understanding the root cause and how the descendants of slaves and American freedmen played a significant role in having this created. I would more than welcome anything that you want me to do to assist in getting that done. And I'm quite sure my organization will be too. We need something that's culturally based in our community. I did attend RCC for a couple of classes. I do know they exist, but there's nothing specifically for American freedmen or for others who want to understand clear culture and community in the city of Boston. And so I totally advocate for this resolution or for this bill to go through to create a HBCU standalone, not in conjunction with any other university. And I think that this will go hand in hand, as Edwin Sumter said, with reparations. It doesn't have to be reparations, but it will be significant. A lot of our abolitionists are from Boston. A lot of people who helped anti-slave laws were in Boston. So this is very befitting. Not everybody was a racist in Boston. Not everybody participated in the slave trade. And I think that this is something that's really significant for us in Boston. So please accept my assistance in making sure that we preserve the history and the heritage. We can do this, but if we don't continue to do these things, it's further erasure of my lineage and our lineage as American freedmen and Black Americans, especially in the city of Boston. And so I thank you again for bringing this to our attention. I thank you for your hard work, and anything you need to do to further assist and promote it, I'll be willing to volunteer for. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Antonia, for your testimony. We're now going to go back into in-person, and we'll go back to our virtual. And please forgive me for if I don't pronounce your name correctly, but we have Juan C. Nana or Juan D. Nana? Okay. You pronounced it correctly. Okay. Thank you. And then we're going to be followed by Holly Smith or something. I can't hear, but you have to, yeah.
Awesome. First of all, thank you, council, and thank you, everybody in the room. This has been a great conversation. Please bear with me, because after every person, there's only more things that I want to say, so I'm going to try to keep it brief. My name is Juan Sinana. I am a recent graduate of Tufts University. I'm originally from Manassas, Virginia. Ethnically, I am Cameroonian American. I'm the middle child of 3 boys. My older brother is 2 years older than me. He's a medical student at Howard University at the moment, and my father is also a Howard University mechanical engineering alumni. I came to Tufts University, which is in Medford. It's not Boston, as you guys know, and I had no understanding of the Northeast or Boston culture in general, but one thing that I figured out very, very early was that higher education is at the core. And over the past couple of years, as I've gotten more exposure and insight into HBCUs, HBCU culture through visiting Howard Homecoming the past 2 years, Spelman, Morehouse, the AUC for their homecoming this past year. I was actually just in Atlanta this past weekend at Spelman and Morehouse again too. I have learned that it is very, 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 very different than the higher education experience here in Boston at these PWIs, even within the Black communities at these PWIs. I have understood that it is very tough for Black students to take up space in these PWIs in Boston, Northeast, across the country in general. And so I am in support of Boston bringing some HBCU campus, or creating an HBCU in Boston, or creating a satellite campus in Boston. Picking up off of what some other people have said prior to this, though, I think that all the people working on it in the years to come do need to always consider the historical context in which they're working, and the historical context of both historically Black colleges and universities, Black America, and also the historic racism that Boston and America has perpetuated, especially with Boston being one of, if not the most historic city within this country. Another thing that I would say is, more recently, I'm reading this book called In the Shadow of the Ivory Tower by Devarian Baldwin, who is a professor at Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut. And some of the things that he's talking about in the book are related to how the higher education enterprise has been used as a vehicle in cities like New York, Hartford, Chicago, and others to further the agenda of external parties that don't care for the citizens of the city and simply want tax-exempt investments into the cities and the communities through real estate, research, all different types of things that the higher education enterprise supports. And so one note that I also want to share is that I hope and I pray that in the development of this HBCU initiative, the grassroots communities are at the forefront of the strategy development, as opposed to whatever investors or partners or sponsors are providing the funds to not only create the space, but then set the agenda for what the HBCU or the satellite campus is going to stand for. Last thing I'll say is I'm the founder of a media and events company called BLK Incubator. Our goal is to bridge gaps across IIGG, which stands for institutions, industries, identities, generations, and geographies. That's something we've been working on for the past year. Last year, we had our first Building Bridges Summit between Tufts and Harvard University, and we talked about a number of different things. We'll be having another one this coming March, and hopefully this can be a conversation, a topic, or something that the people we bring together are discussing. But thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Next up, we have,
Hi, I'm Haley E. Smith. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a proud graduate of the illustrious Clark Atlanta University. And I've been living in Boston for about 3 years now, and have had the privilege of also being able to get another degree in the city of Cambridge, adjacent to Boston. And I think if our goal is to educate and give more access to brown and black students, then we have to first start in the educational piece. So giving them access to scholarships at historically black colleges, making high schools surrounded by historically black colleges, showing them what that means. I think Boston is lacking some of what other people have said is the historical context, not just of the school, but also of the towns and cities that they're placed in. And I think Boston has an opportunity to feed that, but it should be a program that happens over time and not something that you just bring one day and it's a grand opening and we put up the ribbon. I think that HBCUs are experiencing a lot right now, and so it would not be culturally aware or culturally sensitive to then bring something to the city and say, hey, we have this shiny new thing, when we're not taking care of the ones that already exist. There are HBCUs that are underfunded before the Trump administration. There are HBCUs that are always at risk of closing. And I feel like there are more opportunities for us to funnel students into those programs, into those institutions, rather than bring something here. We can create programs where we're partnering with BPS to send buses of students to tour these different HBCUs. And I feel like there's just a better opportunity for us to enhance HBCUs and to put Boston's name attached to it, rather than to just bring something to the city and for it to be something else for the city of Boston.
Thank you. Appreciate you being here. We're going to take 2 more in person. We're going to go back to virtual. We're going to go with Baker Landing and Autumn Suto. Again, please excuse any mispronunciation.
And you got it right for me also, so good job there. Terrible handwriting, so great job. All right, how you doing? Baker Blanding. I am a 2009 graduate of Howard University, an Atlanta native, born and raised, recently relocated to the Boston area, and a spring 2007 initiate of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. So just running a few of those things down, and I was told that there's an opportunity here to also ask questions. So I didn't really come with any sort of speech or things to kind of say to the council, but I did have some questions on this initiative as many of my classmates and other members of the HU Alumni Club of Boston and other HBCU graduate alumni have some questions about this initiative. So if that's okay and pleases the chair.
Yeah, so you can ask questions into the record.
Okay.
Today, it's my understanding as chair, and again, Councilor Wells, the lead sponsor here, is that we're going to be listening from the public to educate ourselves.
Okay.
But we will not be, unless Councilor Wells may have the answer already.
Okay.
They will, yeah. So, but you can definitely put your questions into the record.
Sounds good. Well, we'll just start with the first one. Is there a projected cost for this initiative to bring a satellite HBCU to Boston?
Oh, sorry.
So again, I mean, Councilor, if you want to answer, I'll allow it, but okay. So yeah, we'll just take the questions into the record.
Into the record.
And I'm sure that our offices can follow up.
Fair enough. Part of that follow-up, I'm curious, whatever that cost might be, could that be better used in the near term to service local students that would attend an HBCU, so black students, in their pursuit of graduating from high school, and as other commenters have said, to actually giving them scholarships to already existing institutions. So we'll enter that into the record also, just a question I had there. I noticed that with the council members that are still here, what we have 4 now, out of a body of 13, is this the enthusiasm we can anticipate for this initiative going forward from the city?
You want a response to that? So again, I won't speak for my colleagues. The hearings are publicly, we notice them at least 3 days in advance. We all have busy schedules, and then, who shows up, shows up. But I do know that what I will speak to is that when Councilor Worrell did introduce this on the City Council, I think there was great enthusiasm from the Boston City Council on this. And I don't know if Councilor Worrell wants to speak to it more, but I don't think necessarily that the lack of councilors here is a representation of us not caring or other councilors not caring.
Okay, all right, if you say so. Have you guys ID'd potential partner institutions? This is a satellite campus of existing, I would assume, HBCU institutions. Have you guys identified or put together any sort of plan for potential partner institutions?
So, again, I mean, you can put the questions into...
Yeah, no problem. You can just say it's in the record, I guess, if there's no answer yet. And then I guess it might be more the same on this one. What specific aspects of student life do you plan to foster and support here in Boston that are part of the HBCU experience? I just want to clarify and dig deep. We've heard testimony from many different HBCU alumni, concerned people in, from, and not even and outside of Boston. And going to an HBCU is a lot more than just collecting a degree. That can be done anywhere from your couch now to any sort of other, as you mentioned, PBIs, MSIs, community colleges, you name it. There are certain intrinsic parts of going to an HBCU that you've heard glimpses and glimmers of throughout, and we don't have enough time to get into today, that cannot be replicated. The H perhaps is the most important part of HBCU historically. There is some rooted traditions and strictures that are part of going to all the different organizations you've heard that people are alumni of here. So just collecting a group of black people, putting them into whatever campus or satellite you have, conferring a degree to them in 4 years does not constitute an HBCU. So this is something that, if there's no answer already, I would encourage the council to dig deep and to have an answer the next time you open up to us, the people, and less than half of your colleagues, to have an answer about what actual parts of student life and HBCU culture will be part of this here initiative for a satellite campus. Thank you for your time.
Awesome. Thank you, Baker. Appreciate you testifying and putting those questions into the record. Next up, we have Autumn, and then we'll take some virtual testimony. have the floor. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Autumn Sudo. I serve as the Enrollment and Outreach Coordinator with METCO, Inc. I would just like to say a few things on my experience being a Boston transplant. I am from the Massachusetts area, about an hour south from New Bedford. It is a very diverse neighborhood, city, and I think there have been some disservices with living in Massachusetts that a lot of students growing up, we don't know about the HBCUs that we could take like the opportunity in going to. So I think it's really great to be a part of this conversation and bringing an HBCU to Massachusetts. We have founded the first university in the state of the entire nation, and we have had the first public school for Black students, so it's kind of a shock to me that we don't have an HBCU in the city of Boston just yet. So I think there is a lot of history that comes along with being a Black person within the city of Boston as well. There have been so many movements that have gone through this city that have shaped our nation. So I think with bringing that culture and surrounding it with an HBCU, I think we can have some of those cultures that are in an HBCU. And I was not an attendee of an HBCU, so I can't speak to it fully, but I truly do believe that with the history that this city has, there is room for us to have culture just like HBCUs across the nation as well. I would also love to say that a lot of our METCO students, they are going to HBCUs and they have to leave their city of Boston where they have built these communities, where they have their roots, and now they're looking for that next opportunity of being in a community where they feel fully welcomed, especially with our students attending PWIs. For most of their education, they are lacking some of that community that they feel within their schools. So going to an HBCU is like, it's really a pivotal moment in their lives to really feel welcomed in an institution where they feel seen, where they have the space to be their authentic selves. So I think creating somewhat of a pipeline for some of our students, not just in METCO, but our BPS students as well, for them to have that opportunity to have something right here in Boston, where they have their roots, where they have their families, where they've built their communities, can be very pivotal in their education, their careers, and whatever they choose to do in their futures. I think it's also important for us to, bring it back to closing that generational wealth gap that we spoke about earlier in the opening. I think creating an HBCU for our students to kind of show them what they could be. I am a strong believer of you can't be what you don't see. So if our students aren't seeing an HBCU within their neighborhood or in their communities, and they're not exposed to that, of the opportunities that it can bring to them, it kind of does them a disservice at how much it could benefit their lives as well. So I'll keep it short and I'll say my piece on that, but I'm happy to be a part of this conversation, and I would love to offer any insight for our METCO students and for the Black and Brown community of Boston. So thank you all.
Awesome. Thank you, Autumn. Appreciate you being here. We're going to now go back to virtual testimony, starting with Marjorie Skillman, and then we're going to go with Shamika and then Sharon Hinton. So Marjorie, are you with us? All right, I think you're on mute.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. Yeah.
Oh, good, good, good. Okay, I see my name up there. Very good. The thing that I want to say, I'm not from this new generation. I'm a baby boomer. I have no belief. I believe the cup is still half empty. But whatever positive moves you can make, I believe you need to start, and don't stop. You have to do a rotation and rotate. You start a group, and as the gentleman said prior, the last female who spoke, he sounds as he knows quite a bit about it. Well, I don't know anything. I'm a Bostonian, and I know the suffrage that you go through in education is unbelievable. At least you guys, this generation, do have it a little better. Well, if you have an HBCU, please get it started. Put my name on the list. I don't know what to do, but whatever I can contribute, I would love to do that. I also have some other good ideas. Well, you need to start and not stop, because private industries taking over, people are poor here, and there's not, there might be a lot of different cultures and here in the Boston, even the city area, which I'm from, but the networking for Black people, it's going lower. That majority cannot even afford the rent. So measures are going to have to be taken, and this HBCU needs to get started, and don't give up. You know, take people like me who know nothing about it and be able to apply and get something done, because education, the public education I went to was horrible. And there was no motivation, no anything there in my generation. I just had to keep on moving it and stay positive. And majority of Black students dropped out in the university. I just told them, I said, look, I will be here till I retire. I came for something, I'm not gonna leave. So my persistence and determination pushed me more through. But the discouragement, educational-wise and culturally, you can forget it. I'm sorry, it's not promoted here. This is the Northeast. Historically, it was not promoted, and I don't think in the future it's going to be promoted if you don't promote yourself. So if you can get it started, do a cohort, and get different departments to produce and innovate, do that, get it started. Don't stop, because the networking for any, how should I say, the networking with the culture of Black people in the Northeast is very, very, very low. And everyone runs to not independence, they're forced to dependence here. And as I said, I see the cup is half empty. And that's the sad thing about myself personally. But there's a lot of other folks who won't say that. I just feel I have to be brave at this point to say it. But get a cohort started and get the different departments, the population, which we know is a Black population, and let's get it done. Let this just be a verbal, oral announcement, but the plan should not be that hard to get moved and get going, get something going and rotate, because, I mean, I'm older. You're going to have to deal with the younger generation. And as I was even trying to, I was going to have a branch of Cambridge College, because that's where I did my master's. I was going to put it on a piece of land that I own, but for some reason, whatever jumps in, you know how evil pops up when you're trying to do something good. And someone else took the idea and got Cambridge College in Boston, but somewhere else. But still, it's not too late. You know, let's get it done. You know, I mean, this is a reality. You know, stay positive and let's keep it moving. skillmanlaw2@gmail.com and 857-385-9185. Give me a call, because I'm inspired. I know the suffrage I had to go through, and everyone's not going to do that. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Marjorie.
Yeah.
Great. Next up, we have Shamika, and then we're going to follow that up with Sharon Hinton.
Hi, I'm Shamika Moreno. Good afternoon, counselors. I'm Shamika Moreno. I'm a native Bostonian, Afro-Latina. I firmly believe that an HBCU satellite option is essential. While inclusion is available out of state and culture competency exists, Out of state, a significant number of students face barriers in Massachusetts. And it's not that they don't want to leave Massachusetts, they shouldn't have to leave. They face barriers accessing these universities we even have here.
Shamika, I'm sorry to interrupt you. We can hear you, but we can't, can you try to speak clearly?
Hold on, let me just maybe take my headset off.
Yes, maybe if you do that. I just want to make sure that
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yep, that's a lot better. Yep.
Okay. Good afternoon, councilors. I'm Shamika Moreno, a native Bostonian Afro-Latina. I firmly believe that an HBCU satellite option is essential. While inclusion is available out of state, cultural competency exists out of state. A significant number of students face barriers accessing the universities we have here. It's not that they don't want to leave out of state or they don't want to go to the schools here. They don't have the option to. Maybe one parent household, maybe grandma's raising them, maybe they're in foster care, maybe they live in a community where they're latchkey kids. We have opportunities to go to HBCUs. My best friend is an HBCU graduate and went on a college tour back in 2005. I am that old. So we have those opportunities. I agree with providing opportunities for students to attend despite being unable to relocate from Boston. The experience should be accessible to everyone. As someone said earlier, it should be a standalone, not attached to a university here. Its empirical evidence highlights the academic excellence and the cultural experience in serving Black and brown students. Consequently, I agree it is imperative that we provide accessibility to interested students, but not without the cultural competency in giving jobs to the very people it serves. That comes with attending an HBCU. I support the proposal as a niece, as a cousin to several females in my family who attended Clark and Howard and are alums. I would like to have the opportunity to have it here in Boston. Thank you for the time to speak.
Thank you, Shamika. We're going to take Sharon Hinton on Zoom, and then we're going to go back to in-person testimony.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me?
Yep, we can hear you, Sharon. How you doing?
Okay, great. Hi, my name is Sharon Hinton. I am an educator of over 45 years in Boston Public Schools, charter and private schools, and colleges and universities. I'm also the founder and executive director of Black Teachers Matter. I am also formerly a faculty advisor to Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, Alpha Beta Chapter, and I taught for 12 years at Northeastern University. 10 of them were at the John D. O'Brien African American Institute. So I have a lot of experience, and I'm also a doctoral candidate in education at Northeastern University and a candidate for City Council in District 5. I'm saying that to lay the groundwork of some history. My father was one of the architects of Operation Exodus, which became METCO. And I'm old enough to remember when we couldn't go to school together with Black children. I am speaking in support of this bill, however, there's some caveats. I did listen to some of the comments about you just can't take, it's more than just getting a degree at a majority Black college or university with majority Black colleges, college students, and with faculty. We have places here and experiences here in the Black community. The Topographical Center was an after-school African-American after-school program during the 60s that helped to deprogram us from going to BWIs or predominantly white institutions. I graduated from Beaver Country Day School, which at that time was predominantly white, wealthy, and female. And so my experiences with my father in Exodus, with desegregation, working in the schools, being a teacher and a student, and actually a student and still a teacher now. I have to tell you that there are schools and institutions, the Page Academy is predominantly Black, and it's a Black founded. It's not an HBCU, but it's definitely a Black school that needs the support of the Black community. We have Roxbury Community College here, and I'm wondering what we're gonna do to support that. The John D. O'Brien African American Institute, which is at Northeastern University, where I taught and was an academic advisor, Brian knows that, he was one of my students there, is under attack at a largely white institution that is afraid of losing Trump funding, along with some of the ivory towered, schools, Ivy League schools. I almost transferred to Howard because the atmosphere of being a predominantly Black atmosphere in a predominantly Black city at that time, DC was Chocolate City, just felt safe and very encouraging and very supportive. I didn't go there or to an HBCU because they didn't have the money. They didn't have the funding. As much as I wanted the cultural experience, I couldn't even afford the money just for all of the admissions fees that you had to do. I know what it's like to be in a predominantly Black atmosphere at the John D. O'Brien African American Institute. Our programming was to bring Boston Public Schools students who satisfied the 2.0 GPA, and then for a year, help them get into the classes that they needed to transfer into the major that they wanted, was engineering or law or business or pharmacology or whatever. So I'm in support of this bill with a certain caveat. I also remember the Clara Muhammad School, which is a majority Black school that was on Magnolia Street, connected to the Nation of Islam. And so and also the People's Academy, which has been struggling to get funding from the city. And it is a technical vocational school that's in Dorchester, founded by a Black man who has unique skills that are not found in copper artistry across this nation, and instructed by a Black man who's struggling in the city, getting funded from the city. So for us to go someplace else and put our money someplace else to get an experience that definitely Black students need, I think is putting things, we need to look at what we have here in our backyard. First, the programs that are already here. RCC needs help. Madison Park needs help. There are initiatives here. And my niece graduated from Spelman. The senior pastor of my church, Jubilee, graduated from Morehouse. And I do have experience working with fraternities and sororities, the Divine Nine. And I love going to Illumination Week in Martha's Vineyard, where a majority of people are Black from all across the country and the world spending money. So I understand that. And Malcolm said, only a fool allows his enemy to educate his children. We have allowed that to happen, which is why there have been so many people on this Zoom call and in this forum that have no idea the greatness of Black people. When I say Black people, I'm including everyone in the diaspora, but I'm specifically focusing on Black Bostonians. We're the first public school, the first police force, the first subway system. We're the first in a lot of different things. So we do have, for this young sister that didn't know, regular tours to HBCUs for public students and private students from the Metco system, from the public system, and from some of the private schools. That is a different experience from colleges and from here. I support this initiative as an educator, as hopefully a potential city councilor that will be working with you guys there, and a Bostonian and a Black American. I definitely, whatever I can do to support you, but there's some caveats. You will not get the Black experience in Boston that you get in the HBCU. You can manufacture it a little bit, but it is under fire, and that's no joke. And this administration isn't going anywhere. But even without this administration, there historically were problems in the culture of Boston. Last year, when I was down at Martha's Vineyard, and I was talking to people, where you're from, and they were saying, like, hold up, let me finish, I'm wrapping up. Even when I talked to people that were down there in Martha's Vineyard, when I told them that I came from Boston, they were like, oh yeah, we know about Boston. So there's a culture in Boston that has to be also changed if you're going to be supportive of any majority Black institution, educational or otherwise, in Boston. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Appreciate your testimony. We're going to go back to in-person. I just want to remind folks, usually we're pretty strict on 2 minutes today because it's such an important topic, and I know, people have come from many ways to be here. We're being flexible with that, but I just want to remind folks to just try to be mindful of other people who are waiting. So we're going to go back to in-person, starting with Melissa Hector. We're going to go then to Herbert Jones and Janice McManus. So those three individuals will take in person. I got Melissa Hector, Herbert Jones, and Janice McManus.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Councilor Santana and Councilor Worrell. And thank you so much for hosting this session today. And Councilor Worrell, thank you for the idea of the HBCU satellite campus. So as stated, my name is Melissa Hector, and my testimony is one on that HBCU should exist and should exist with resources here in Boston. Before I start that testimony, though, I think I would be remiss, and my 85-year-old historian father would be behooved if I didn't talk about RCC, in my opinion, as a historically Black institution. There's a lot of testimonies that have been had and talk about that there's nothing that exists here, and I think that we really have to acknowledge the fact that Roxbury Community College was founded and created to support Black people, underserved populations here in Boston who were not able to get an education or were denied education of other institutions here in this city. And that took place over 50 years ago, starting in 1969 and being founded in 1973. So I think when we really consider this conversation, understanding and promoting the history of advocacy that has been done to ensure that Black people have access to an education here, that RCC, I think, has been that foundation and should be the catalyst for some sort of pipeline program for this satellite campus opportunity. So here's my testimony. One, HBCUs in Boston should exist with resources, having financial support, scholarly professorship, and uncensored cultural affairs. I grew up in Roxbury. I'm a current resident and homeowner in the neighborhood of Grove Hall. I'm a graduate of English High School, and I hold 3 degrees from 3 PWIs, or predominantly white institutions. I graduated from Bentley University undergrad. I received my first master's from Northeastern University, and I recently graduated from Boston University with an MBA. I share these not only because I'm proud of the education I received, but because my story is a testimony of living in a predominantly Black community and going to a predominantly white institution and experiencing extreme culture shock. I'm thankful for the education that I received at these institutions. It's molded me and shaped me to who I am as a leader. But as a youth in Boston Public Schools, I always had a strong desire to attend a historically Black college or university. I went on an HBCU Black College tour where I was able to visit over 20 institutions throughout the Middle Mason-Dixon line and the South, and was awed by the culture that I saw and learning about the amazing people that graduated from these institutions. I made a decision to go to an institution that was predominantly white due to financial reasons. The lack of financial aid that was offered by the historically Black colleges and universities was very low to minimum. And there was an extreme disproportionate rate of financial aid that was offered to in-state students rather than out-of-state students. And I received a lot more grant funding in my financial aid from the colleges that I went to that were not historically Black. And so I believe that as we're considering creating this opportunity, that we really think about how we're providing resources to students that are going to be possibly attending. How are we setting students up for as much success as possible? How are we ensuring that we're not causing or having any additional financial burdens on any students, considering the cost of living here in the state? I think that there's a great opportunity, as I mentioned earlier, to consider a pipeline program with Roxbury Community College, where, yes, not all students may be wanting to go to a 2-year institution as their first route, but perhaps for those that might be their first route, there's some pipeline institution that is connected further down the road, connected to another institution that is already accredited as a HBCU. We currently see programs like that between Spelman and Wellesley here, and so there's a great possibility to have that be had. And lastly, I'll say that HBCUs don't only have to exist in the South, that they can too exist in the North. I think that one of the things that we really need to ensure is that we're promoting a great deal of what it means to experience a full, rounded, holistic education when you're with people who look like you, and when you're taught and educated by someone who looks like you. My culture shock had a great deal and a lot of learning that helped me to be able to live in the world of work that I live in today. But had I had professors that looked like me or come from communities that I come from, I think that would have caused a lot less stress factors in my life. And so naturally, I gravitated towards professors that had some sort of similarities that I did, so that I could have a more connection and feel to the institution I was at. And the last piece I'll say is that I'm also an educator myself. I'm a part-time, or have served in part-time education roles at Bentley University, at Urban College, and most recently at Tufts University. So education is very important to me. I know what it's like to be a student, and I know what it's like to teach. So thank you for that time.
Awesome. Thank you, Melissa. I really appreciate you being here. Next up, we have Herbert Jones.
Good afternoon, councilors. Thank you for this opportunity. I initially had not planned to testify, but I did want to, after listening and hearing people, I come from a very personal experience today because I am not a native Bostonian. I grew up in Richmond, Virginia, the capital of the Confederacy, and came to Boston to go to college. So it was sort of the opposite. But my life was very much impacted and shaped by HBCUs. Richmond is the home of Virginia Union University, where I spent my first couple of summer jobs. My siblings, two of my siblings attended and graduated from Howard University. And right down the street, most of my teachers in K through 12 were educated at HBCUs, largely Virginia State, Virginia Union, Hampton, Howard, and Morgan. But, and I say that to say that one of the things that I think that, one of the reasons I support bringing an HBCU to Boston in some way, shape, or form is that an HBCU is not just about the education on campus, but it's about the community that campus can create that spreads beyond the bounds of the campus. I do remember that so much of what went on in the community centers was fueled by and supported by the HBCUs in the area. That a lot of the cultural opportunities that grew in the city and were planted in the various communities were sponsored and supported by those HBCUs in the area. And having been here in Boston for about 40 years now and having worked with young people over the course of those 40 years, one of the things that I've always tried to do is to share with them opportunities that I didn't have or accesses that I didn't have. And unfortunately, those young people who I've worked with over the years who found their way to an HBCU were so enthralled with it that most of them chose not to come back to Boston. And I think if there was something that could give them that kind of exposure here in the Boston area, that they would not need to leave to go there and find that they could have that here already and begin to build those bridges between their community and what the school has to offer. So I am here to stand in support of whatever we can do to create some sort of opportunity, some sort of HBCU-like campus or atmosphere, or mostly that community connection that HBCUs are known for and that they fostered over their histories. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Next up, we have Janice. And then after Janice, we're gonna have, I believe, Dr. Jonathan Jefferson and Dr. Jamal Dari Kamara afterwards. So, Janice, thank you so much for being here. You have the floor.
Good afternoon. Thank you for sponsoring this interesting event. I am not from Boston. I will share some historical information. I am a descendant of the ex-slaves on my mother's and father's side from South Carolina. So HBCUs are definitely part of my culture. Not only were there HBCUs, but there were also HBCU elementary and secondary students. Boston has played a part in the education of the ex-slaves. The teacher in Boston, Mrs. Crane, she left teaching Boston Public Schools to go to the Mather School in Beaufort, South Carolina, where my mother graduated. The school existed until the 1960s, from the 1860s, and it was geared toward the education of these descendants of the ex-slaves. The legacy also for some of my family members taught there have gone to different HBCUs. There was a rumor that Roxbury Community College has been listed as an HBCU. A satellite experience might be a very good experience, but again, the culture and everything that happens is different than what happens on a predominantly white campus. My own personal experience is one of my great-grandfathers, after the end of slavery, he decided that he wanted to learn to read because that was forbidden at the time. And he stayed on the plantation so he could take the white children to school so he could learn to read. There have been many agreements between HBCUs and institutions in the North, particularly I think Harvard had one and MIT had one, where if the students graduated in their undergraduate experience, they would come to Boston to those schools for their masters and PhDs. Traditionally, HBCUs got most of their support from the black churches and also from white philanthropy. So I'm not sure what the funding will be. And again, these student schools have been in existence for hundreds of years, so if we're starting something new, it might look a little bit different. In terms of what these schools would be here for, you have to talk about recruitment of students, retention of the students on the campus, and I had worked in the MEDCO program, and some of my students did go to HBCU. The culture was so different from them, having gone to a predominantly white school and going to South, and they had to come back. And so I have heard that story before. So also the movement for predominantly black education, Dr. Carter G. Woodson spent a time at Harvard University. Then he said, there's something missing from this education, and he started a Black History organization. W.E. Du Bois was at Harvard. So, and people talked about the abolitionist movement and abolition in Boston. So those are some of my thoughts on, right now, on HBCU in Boston. Thank you for sharing. Let me share my thoughts with you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing and testifying. Dr. Jefferson, and then we'll have Dr. Kumara.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jonathan Jefferson, and I'm the current president of Roxbury Community College. I think that context is important, and to know about your background and your history are important. You know, the movement to create Roxbury Community College started in 1969. I believe it was 69 or 68. But if you realize that that movement would have started 5 years earlier, and actually had been carried to fruition, that Roxbury Community College would actually be an HBCU. The only reason that it is not an HBCU is because it was actually chartered in 1973 and not before 1964. It's also important to know that Roxbury was created in the same ilk that many HBCUs were created. Black folks needed an education. Black Bostonians did not want a highway going through its neighborhood and protested that highway and said, instead, we want an education, an institution of higher learning where black folks can go and get an education. 52 years ago, to this day, Roxbury Community College was founded. It is the only predominantly black institution in all of New England. 90% of the students who attend Roxbury Community College are students of color. 80% of the students who attend Roxbury Community College are black, African or African American, or of African descent. We are your HBCU. Context is important. The other things that you need to be aware of is that we already have articulation agreements with other schools. We've had for a number of years an articulation agreement with Delaware State University, which happens to be the closest HBCU to us. And on Friday, we will be signing an articulation agreement with Johnson C. Smith University from Charlotte, North Carolina. That agreement will be an historic agreement because not only are students at through Roxbury will get direct admission to Johnson C. Smith University. By the way, the agreement we have with Delaware, they get direct admitted to Delaware State also. But we will also be exploring ways to bring a satellite campus of Johnson C. Smith to Roxbury Community College. We'll be exploring ways to do joint teaching using virtual reality, AI, and bandwidth opportunities. This is a tremendous opportunity for this city. Many people have talked about the missing element of an HBCU. And I should back up for a moment because it's very important for you to know that I'm a product of Morehouse College. I graduated from Morehouse College in 1982 with a degree in mathematics, and then went from Morehouse to Cornell and got a degree in engineering, specifically operations research and industrial engineering. I worked for AT&T Bell Laboratories, which was the premier R&D organization in this country at the time. Why do I tell you this? Because I got preparation to go to Cornell, and I had the audacity to go work for AT&T Bell Laboratories because I graduated from Morehouse College. I'm also the former dean of the College of Business at Albany State University in Albany, Georgia, which is an HBCU, and the former dean of the College of Business at Clark Atlanta University in Atlanta, Georgia, which is the largest private HBCU. I'm not saying this to you to brag. I want you to understand that context matters. I know what running an HBCU is like because I worked at two of them. I know the feeling of an HBCU because I graduated from one of them. When the opportunity came to become the president of Roxbury Community College, I thank God, and I was very, very pleased to be able to be selected as the 18th president of this wonderful institution. I always wanted to be the president of an HBCU, went to all kinds of programs to become an HBCU president, but my lot was cast here with Roxbury Community College. We will make Roxbury into whatever Roxbury needs to be for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. But please understand that if you want your HBCU, then build it at the one that you already have. We are bringing in the HBCUs to the Commonwealth. Let us do that. Work with us, support us, and let's build a bigger, better HBCU, what we already have in the Commonwealth. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Jefferson, for being here and for your testimony. Next up, we have Dr. Kamara. After Dr. Kamara, we're going to have Andrea Spence and Marlon Solomon. Those are the, if you are here and haven't testified and want to testify, please sign up at the entrance. Dr. Kamara, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, Councilor Santana and Councilor Worrell, for hosting this discussion. I think it's obviously very timely from the level of participation you've had, both online as well as here. And it's one that deeply concerns me as a resident of our community for several decades here, having come to Boston some almost 40 years ago now, at the University of Massachusetts, Boston. And thank you very much, Dr. Jefferson, for your comments. I think they're very timely and appropriate given the context of what we're discussing. I will try to be brief, even though I have a lot to say on this issue. But the notations that Dr. Jefferson made with regard to RCC, I think are extremely important as we're engaging a conversation about HBCUs and the greater Boston community. In the fact that when we speak about HBCU, we're talking about a legal entity. a legal entity that is defined by certain kind of criteria that exist in other places than here. And therefore, building bridges with those to have such an entity here becomes the context or the framework within which we would operate with regard to using that language. But there's other language that we can utilize to engage the conversation. For me, the essential element of the conversation is around the issue of form follows function. What is it that we're trying to achieve? That must be the focus of the conversation and the discussion. From that and the answers to many of the questions that were being raised earlier, then we should step back and say, what is the form of a structure or an institution that will allow us to achieve those objectives? Higher education serves three critical functions. As I suggested, have taught at the University of Massachusetts for almost 40 years. I came here from a predominantly white institution to serve as the dean of the College of Public and Community Service, an institution that had been set up at the University of Massachusetts for almost 40 years. And I came for one reason, because the college was set up pedagogically in the framework of being able to reach out and to teach people in our communities from across the greater Boston area using a pedagogical framework that had no grades. It was structured around a model of competency-based education. The focus was on when you leave this institution, what can you do? And we began to teach to a set of skills across skill areas. Then using what bodies of knowledge, generally in institutions we call those disciplines, through what bodies of knowledge can you teach two sets of skills so that students who are graduating can do something? And the acquisition of those skills leads to certain career opportunities. And assessing what those are transitions over historical time. The conversation of education within our community is one that has gone on for several centuries, actually. And we often pit the notion of Booker T's model versus W.E.B. Du Bois. Du Bois talked about the creation of a talented tenth based upon a liberal arts framework, while Booker T talked about skill acquisition in institutions that had been set up after the Civil War and so forth. But the framework of the conversation should not be either or. It is both and. And as we are engaged in the 21st century here in Boston, in a city that has some 60 institutions of higher education, we hear the cry from our community, from students, from community residents, to create a cultural and an environment, educational environment, to nurture our students. That's what we're hearing. The notion of reaching out for an HBCU, we've heard today, as being much more than just a black campus. It's about creating an environment that supports, that nurtures our students and our community. But in the context of looking at an educational structure, there are other dimensions. Teaching is one. And I would suggest that there is a range of teaching opportunities that we need to look at. And competency-based education is one. And I can go into a long dissertation about what that is. But the notion of competency education removes the stigma of failure. It also includes not just students coming out of high school, but it includes adult learners who are coming back to school. And it is assumed that you are bringing something with you, not some vacuous body, but rather you have a whole series of experiences that you are bringing, and that those should be valued by the institution. and that the evaluation of you as you move forward is based upon your demonstration of both skills and knowledge. And there are ways that you can do that pedagogically. So the pedagogical criteria is one that we need to look at in whatever structure we're trying to achieve. Secondly is the question of research. Any institution of higher education now is generating research. That is one of the sources of revenue that comes in. And what has happened in our community right here in Boston is that we have institutions from all around this greater Boston area, Massachusetts and beyond, who come and research our community, generate external dollars. When they get the dollars don't come to our community, they go to the university. The university takes X% off the top, come in, send a team of people into our community, research the problem, and go back with a report. And we're left with the problem. What kind of an institution are we proposing to establish, and what is the relationship between the process of engaging research with faculty, with an institutional administration, and the community that it is serving and working with? That is a central issue we need to talk about in relationship to whatever form of entity we wish to create. Thirdly is the notion of service. At the University of Massachusetts, Boston, as part of the Africana Studies Department, we have a Center for African, Caribbean, and Community Development that has been in existence for more than 20 years. We currently have a bill in the state legislature to rename the center for Senator Bill Owens, who served in the center for more than a decade after he left the Senate. The bill would allow us to both rename the center, but to begin to engage work on the building and shaping of something we call a communiversity. An entity that would allow us to engage and work with a network of community-based organizations and institutions to begin to provide services, access to research and training for students. I would suggest that there are a number of models that we should be looking at in order to answer the initial question, form follows function, and what is the most appropriate form that would allow us to engage the needs that we're hearing from our community as we're moving forward. I support the bill that has been proposed, but it is with this broader discussion that I think our community is longing to engage in. And I would look forward to being able to work with you and talk about this in more detail. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kamara. We have two more people who are signed up for in-person testimony, and then we're going to go back to virtual. I think we have 3 people who are still waiting for us. So next up we have Andrea Spence and Marlon Solomon. Also just want to recognize Chief Adewu for being here. I know you're heading out right now, but thank you for being here. Thank you, Chief. So Andrea Spence and Marlon Solomon. Do we have any Andrea Spence in the chamber? Or Marlon Solomon? Okay. I see him back there.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, counselors, for having this meeting. Goodness, I don't blame Andrea, because after those 2 professors spoke, it's kind of like big shoes to fill, but we thank them for their service as usual. Those of you who know me, my name is Marlon Solomon. I'm with the Afro-American Academy, the senior project engineer there, and a founder. Our organization does a lot of research and development around African-American culture here in the city of Boston. We serve mostly multicultural communities. We have a summer school program and an after-school program where I'm dealing with young people today. So, when we put out our applications, we get about 100. We had this last year about 156 young people that applied, and when you have the Afro-American Academy name, they know what they're getting. But we only allowed 10%, about 16, to attend. This overwhelming groundswell of young people that are applying tells me one variable thing, that they are longing for the cultural grounding of the Afro-American Academy, because as we say, we HBCU the PWIs here in Boston. We do this in our larger mission around repairing and the cultural erasure of African-American communities here in Boston. And I'm speaking specifically about African-American, not Black immigrant communities, which I'm also half a part of, as a half Nigerian, half African-American. My students are currently in Spelman, Lincoln, Clark University, and of course, okay, so now here, the RCC. And definitely finance is a major issue. I've had students have to go to PWIs despite what they wanted because of the financial issues and the advantages going to PWIs. Medco students face particular need for my organization. A lot of times when I say underserved communities, you think of kids that may be perceived to not have what they want, what they need as far as education, but the Medco students that leave their communities every day on about 3-hour round trip every day, they are completely disconnected from their communities. And when they get the education that that we're sending them across the greater Boston area to get, when they come back, they don't have as much connection to the community that we are hoping that they would influence when they get back with this great education. So that's a big issue. They're doing everything from representing their whole race to educating their white teachers on black culture. I always, as people may know me a lot about the redlining and urban renewal, and I do that because I do believe that the built environment are incubators of cultural development. And when you do not have any spaces that represent who you are, then that also says a lot. We're talking about African-American history, so when we say these things about African-American culture, you have to realize that in Boston, there are no African-American cultural hubs that still exist in their full fashion as they did back in the 50s and 60s. There's a reason why the RCC happened at the time it did. It was because the community that I studied, the community I fell in love with, the Roxbury community, Lower Roxbury community, pardon me, which is the Madison Park Field and the surrounding area. That community had about 6 to 7 African-American run schools, as often not mentioned. So are we really starting something new, or is the RCC basically an outstretch of the feelings that people had lost schools that were in those communities, from the Shaw House to the Norfolk House to the Freedom House? All those were African-American schools that I believe would have developed into our own HBCU. It's actually ironic that in a community, in the city of Boston, African-Americans have been here since 1638, and there's no community that we can say, oh, that's an African-American community. Eggleston is Dominican, we have Haitians, and I love my brothers and sisters. This is not about that, but we're just trying to say that there should be a priority for African-American culture, and it's not just for African-American culture. If you come here as an immigrant, you do not understand that the reason why you're able to enjoy the things that you're enjoying is because of the sacrifices of a particular group. Then you won't be able to interact with that group. You won't be able to be compassionate. You won't be able to share your culture with that group. And that's something that I feel that is often overlooked. Going back to the research that Dr. Myra talked about, this research, there's no substitute for us researching ourselves. Like I always say, this building that we look here in the brutalist, design, no African-American would have designed this ugly thing. It just simply doesn't have the seasoning and the spice that we desire in our lives. And so when you think of the lost cultural communities, you have to understand that the RCC comes from a culture a community that was literally, that's the longest that African Americans had ever been in one place in Boston, was in Roxbury, from early 1900s to when it went down. And that continuity makes it's so important that this is a reparation. I don't see reparation as a check. It's about, if we have our culture, we don't need much else. We had an African-American Chinatown, basically, along Ruggles Street, around Vernon. And that community had 500 businesses that were not replaced with commercial zoning. They were replaced with residential zoning. How are we supposed to make money? How are we supposed to eat? We had 7 or 8 jazz clubs in the area. We had a music art village nearby. All these things, these are the practice spaces. These are the incubators for the culture. And guess what? That culture makes money. We're in the West End right now. The North End is making more money than the West End. And the West End got renewed to make money. So that's why I do this work. And I do want to say that if we can't do this research and we cannot support the RCC and the other institutions that we're trying to build here, we cannot truly have the kind of equality and equity that we are so hungry for in this community. And my students, I'll say, end on this. My students, I've had students, African-American students, that don't think that jazz is a white art form. We invented it. It's ours. We cannot play it because of cultural erasure, because of lack of spaces to practice. The informal learning spaces that were in this community cannot be duplicated by any institution. There are parks, there are church choirs, there are the Chitlin Circuit. We only have one. That's Wally's Jazz Cafe. That's the last family-owned African-American jazz club that's still in existence. That's a shame, Boston. It's a big shame. And I'm not even from Boston, but I fell in love with the community. I'm here to fight for it. So please, let's get this HBCU going. And also, let's support the organizations that are already here on ground. We are already here doing the work. We are being defunded right now. We're trying to survive right now. The Harriet Tubman House tried to survive right now. It's gone. And that's a travesty. Thank you very much for this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Marlon. Appreciate you being with us. We're going to go back to virtual testimony. Again, if anyone who's in the chamber and wants to testify, please sign up at the front of the chamber. But that's the list that I received from in person. So we're going to go to virtual. We have with us Jacqueline Fonseca, Ayana Hines, and we have Diane.
All right. Good evening or good afternoon. Thank you for having us, Counselor, and for everyone that testified. I learned a lot today. My name is Jacqueline Fonseca. I'm a proud Black woman of Cape Verdean descent, a Boston public school graduate, and an advocate for education as the essential tool to dismantling structural racism. As an advocate for our wrongfully incarcerated community, I have learned that it costs our taxpayers an average of $131,000 per year to house just one prisoner in Massachusetts, majority Black and brown. Imagine if we redirected half of that annual funding to sending our youth to an HBCU in or outside of Boston instead. Boston is my home, one of America's oldest cities, a place of historical firsts. It's where Crispus Attucks, a Black man, became the first to give his life in the American Revolution during the Boston Massacre. It's where William Lloyd Garrison and Frederick Douglass organized against chattel slavery. And it's where the Black community of Beacon Hill built schools and fought for equality in education long before it was the law. Boston has long been considered a Black Mecca, as you've heard before today, with Dorchester and Roxbury at its heart, and where Black families, culture, and leadership has flourished. And yet too often, people outside of Boston are shocked to hear that we even have a Black community here at all. I also know the darker history of our city's fight for educational equality. I graduated from South Boston High School, the very school at the center of the busing crisis. Walking those halls, I learned how just one generation before me, Black children faced violence, hatred, and terror simply for pursuing equal education. That history is still silently with us, hiding behind the school-to-prison pipeline. And it reminds us that education in Boston has always been tied to the struggle for racial justice. As a BPS graduate, my dream was to attend Clark Atlanta or Howard University. I was accepted into Clark Atlanta and I was thrilled. But as a foster youth, a ward of the state at the time, I was urged to stay in state to access educational benefits. Reluctantly, I stayed, and while I pursued my education, I missed out on the HBCU experience, a place that affirms Black excellence, Black history, and Black community. That opportunity is what I want for the next generation, for my teenage daughter who's starting her freshman year of high school, and for every young Black student in this city. Today, my daughter's a proud METCO student. She carries forward Boston's legacy of fighting for equal access to education. This year, she will have the opportunity to tour HBCUs with her METCO classmates, and I'm super excited for her. But what we're still missing is the last piece of that puzzle, is the opportunity for our students to see representation and attend HBCUs right here at home if they choose to do so. Right now, the only alternative our students have are Black student unions within predominantly white institutions. Those spaces are valuable, but they are not the same as a college built from the ground up to center and affirm Black identity, culture, and scholarship. We already honor historical Black figures by naming schools and college halls after them, like the John D. O'Brien and the Melvin H. King South End Academy. But now it's time to take it to the next step, to expand the effort into a full HBCU. Imagine a John D. O'Brien HBCU or a Mel King HBCU in Boston, an institution carrying our legacy forward into the future. And we need that now more than ever. Across the country, we are witnessing attempts to erase Black history from classrooms and curriculums. That makes it even more urgent for Boston, a city with such rich Black history, to lead by example. Boston is already the Mecca of education. We are home to some of the most renowned colleges in the world, but the absence of a HBCU is a glaring gap. Bringing one here is not just about symbolism, it's about equity, representation, and opportunity. In fact, bringing an HBCU to Boston in any form would itself be a form of reparations, a tangible investment in repairing generations of exclusion and systemic inequity that Black Bostonians have forever endured. This will honor our history, strengthen our identity as a multicultural city of education and justice, and ensure that our young people can thrive in an institution built for them. I urge you to support this initiative. Thank you, everyone, for your testimony.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you testifying. Next up, we have Ayanna Hines, and I think the name. Okay. So yeah, we have Ayanna Hines, and then we also have someone with the name Precious Nails on the Zoom.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and thank you for holding this session. One, I introduce myself, Ayanna Hines. I am a graduate of Howard University. I come from a family rich and deep in the HBCU tradition. 6 of us are Howard grads, 3 are Spelman, 2 are Grambling, 2 are Tougaloo College, 1 each at Alabama A&M, Morgan State University, Fisk, Bethune College, and the 3rd generation just started last week at Winston-Salem University. To say that I am invested would be an understatement. I am happy that the conversation has come up, but I think echoing, my brother Bison, I have a lot of questions. One question I have is, what data do you have that says that this is a need? Reading the order, I read that there's a need for more culturally sensitive schools has grown, and I question that. Because to me, a more accurate statement might be that students and families now want an experience that is more reflective of who they are and a place where they can be and just be. HBCUs have been that. They've been doing that. And I don't see a need to recreate that locally. I also want to just point out, also in the order, I was reading about the Office of Black Male Achievement and a number of others who have been doing HBCU tours. And that is to be commended, but I did not want to leave out the Boys and Girls Club of Boston, who has been doing it for over a decade. And legions of students from the Roxbury Club have gone to HBCUs as a result. And Madison Park Development Corporation has recently launched a tour as well. They actually have applications open now for their next tour next year. One of the things that I want to bring up is we're using schooling and education interchangeably. And to me, they are very different things. Schooling is very structured, it is intentional, it is typically prescribed by someone else, meaning you have a scheme for your program, you do all these courses, and you earn your degree. Education is lifelong, and it happens in the process of schooling. And to that end, I'm not convinced that a satellite campus is going to be able to replicate the actual on-campus HBCU experience. As others have already said, it is not just about the academics. It is about the life that you learn to build as a young person in that city. And for example, Washington, D.C. has a culture unto itself. If I had done a satellite program, I would never know about go-go music. I would never know about Marion Barry being the mayor for life, because I was there during that time and I could see and witness why he holds that moniker. So the education is not just about the school, it is about the communities and the cities that have hosted these schools for decades. The churches, the janitors, all of these folks kind of become the community that students really are able to learn from and grow from. I've heard a number of people also speak about being able to have faculty that look like them. I graduated from Thayer Academy here. I was one of 4 Black students in my class and the only one to go to an HBCU. Howard gave me the most diverse experience of professors. I had my first Asian professor, my first continental African professor, my first professors from the Caribbean. So it is not just about Blackness, but really about a worldview. And I would submit that that is probably the case around HBCUs, because a lot of these faculty members are also up against a wall trying to get into PWIs as faculty members. So that cannot be lost. Other things that you cannot duplicate are, and again, I speak from my own experience. I had a college mate, first in his family from New York to go to college, and he came to Howard and said, I cannot leave without going home, without having a degree before I go home. This young man sold his car, he slept on a couch, he took a bath in the gym for his last semester. That is how hungry he was for this degree. And I think that type of experience, to witness that, to see a contemporary really go for it, is something that, again, cannot be replicated. And it does help you to grow as a person, to see outside of yourself and to see where you might be able to push yourself in ways that you might not typically do. I will kind of wrap up with this. You know, Boston, we picture ourselves as a culture or city of innovation. With Dr. Jefferson talking about the articulation agreement that is already in place at RCC and the one that is forthcoming. And if my memory serves me correctly, I believe there was a time where Bunker Hill also had some articulation agreement with HBCUs and perhaps UMass Boston, and that's been a while. I would support him in moving this effort forward through RCC and articulation agreements that might already be in existence. But to that end, and I will say this, when I worked at Scholar Athletes, which I oversaw a program in all of Boston public schools, career readiness, health and wellness, and college readiness were our 3 program areas. One of the things that I found incredibly alarming is that the people who worked in the program were very uninformed themselves about HBCUs. So I don't think that students are unaware, but it's the adults who have the influence who themselves are unaware. And what I would offer as some considerations is to, one, with school leaders, offering a tour that school leaders are actually going on of the HBCUs. My daughter is 13, she's entering 8th grade in a Boston public school. her head of school has a bias for Ivy League schools. I've had to talk to him on multiple occasions about that because it's not in my realm of what I would want my daughter to be looking at. And again, I think that just comes from a place of not knowing. So that would be one recommendation is in addition to taking students on tours, you should also be informing the heads of schools and perhaps college counselors, because I think there is a gap in terms of their own awareness and appreciation for the institutions. I would also add that many of these tours don't involve parents, and many of these students are first generation. Tours need to involve parents. If parents are scared that their young person is going to unknown territory, that is a valid fear. And I think the school systems or whoever are doing the tours really need to engage parents so that parents are also learning in the process with their young person and can be supportive when and if their young person decides that an HBCU is what they want to pursue. I would also suggest there are a number of nonprofits who are in the college readiness space who do finance students going to college, with the caveat that students go to the colleges they choose, leaving the students with no agency to select a college that is designed for their success. So I would recommend that some conversations be had with those nonprofits that are doing that. To me, that is predatory, and our students deserve better. Students who often struggle with options.
To wrap it up, you can still continue going, but we still do
Sure.
have one more person afterwards. I want to make sure to get to.
Yep. Okay. Students who struggle with options at HBCUs, maybe they're not academically ready. Again, these schools were designed for all learners of all types. There are HBCUs that have programs that will accept students who are D students. Again, these schools have existed for us, and they understand what some students are coming with, and they offer the programs to support that. But again, I think there is a lot of learning that has to happen. And then two final things. One, if there is fear about going to these new cities, I think it was Ms. Hinton mentioned that students were coming back from the South because of the cultural shock. As a native Mississippian, I find that interesting because I had a culture shock coming here, but I didn't leave. Are there opportunities, again, with innovation where Boston could set up some programs on some HBCU campuses that are like Upward Bound that would give Boston-based students the opportunity to spend some significant time on the campus to kind of get the acclimation before actually going? And then finally, I would simply say I do not support a satellite campus, and that is mainly because there is so much of the richness of the experience that students would be robbed of. And I think if you're going to go for that experience, go at it full throttle and not a watered down version. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for testifying. Next up, we have Precious Nails. Oh, okay. That's it. I believe if there's anyone else in the chamber who wants to testify, this would be the chance to right now. Seeing no one. All right. Well, I would like to all right. I want to allow the lead sponsor to do closing statements, and then we'll adjourn.
Thank you again, Chair, for scheduling this hearing, and thank you to everyone who showed up to testify, all the residents, the alumni, the students, the parents, the institutions that are currently doing this work, along with the grassroots organizations that are invested in our young people in our community as well. This is the very beginning of a conversation. We cannot do this without hearing from community first in order to shape what this satellite campus or HBCU presence should look like here in the city of Boston. So I'm excited about continue on this conversation, and I've taken a lot of notes and heard loud and clear on a few different themes. So looking forward to the next steps. which we will be hopefully pushing out in the near future, but definitely want to digest and report out what we've heard and then take the next steps from there. So thank you again for everyone who took the time out to lend their voice to this very important conversation. And again, thank you, Chair, IGR, my team, and everyone who attended.
Awesome. Thank you, Councilor Worrell. Thank you also, Councilor Flynn, for staying all the way through here. And thank you to my colleagues, and thank you to everyone who came and testified today. It was really beautiful to just, and really, really informative and educational to just to hear different perspectives and seeing, you know, what Boston has in store in the future. So appreciate everyone being here, and thank again to the lead sponsor for bringing this issue forward. This hearing, docket number 1283, is adjourned.